Hi there, welcome back. So this is part 2 of the matrix of our beliefs. I feel like I had just gotten to the heart of things right there at the end of the video. So I wanted to make a quick second video just to dive a little deeper into it. Why am I dwelling on this? Because it's extremely important, and I want to make sure that I articulate it the best way that I can so you cannot, allow it to kind of wash over you without grasping the gravity of it and why it's so crucial right now in this very precarious, moment in time. So, what is it again? It is the entirety of our belief systems in a nutshell, right? We've got our belief systems and our personal conditioning on top of that, as it fits within family dynamics and our own personal experiences. And we've also got the exterior society conditioning on top of that, and all of that together creates the matrix of our beliefs. It filters through, it splinters off, it affects things, it affects how we move forward, it affects if we don't move forward. It is a part, or in part, our limiting beliefs, but also the things that allow us to expand. And if for just a moment we think about this moment as an astrologer would, I know that you've heard, if you're watching this video, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say something like January 11th was a portal for manifestation, right? That's how astrologers talk about it, who look at what the moon is doing and when it's the most potent and tell us, okay, this is a great opportunity to manifest your dreams, like they did for January 11th. Well, this moment is like that, except it's on steroids, and those steroids are on steroids, right? So it's like that times 100,000, Why? Because all of us, it's not just a select few, but all of us are having this experience together. And so it's quite different. And it's not as though we are all wanting to manifest different dreams right now either. It's not like we're saying, oh, I want a car, or I want a house, or I want a trip to Bali. Those may be things that you want, but this moment is not about that. Those who are paying attention to what's going on have shared dreams. There are certain things that we want, right? We want our government to actually care about the people that it governs. We want families to be safe. We don't want heinous things to happen, such as ice trucks in different neighborhoods, picking up people who are actually not, quote, illegal and attempting to deport them. We want peace and sanity, and we want really for the chaos to end. And I'm being very broad and general, but actually this moment that is so precarious and pliable and flexible, and that we are creating as we land on that other grid. As I mentioned in the last video, it's kind of like we're in midair right now. We took the leap off of one grid and we're waiting to land onto the next grid. Like, this moment calls for specificity. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean. The Latino community throughout social media has called into focus their issue of colorism. Now, up until this point, we knew it existed. No one really paid much attention to it in terms of calling it out or saying, hey, we need to change this, but now they are. And thank you for those that are doing the hard work to educate people in those comment sections. You guys are amazing. But they have noticed that, and they're being quite honest and open, saying that, hey, Black people have helped us throughout history here in so many ways, and yet when we have an opportunity to help, such as voting a certain way, for example, we don't do it, right? And that is because of our issue of colorism, and that we've bought into the lie that they are less than us. So they're calling it out, and they're also calling it out within that, they're calling that colorism out within their own community, saying, hey, it's a falsehood. It's not true that I'm better than you because I'm lighter, or that just because you're from a different part of the world, you're not as good as me. And so that is one piece of that puzzle. In addition to that, the Black community is saying, well, we've helped you guys a whole lot. We've helped you. We always help you. And we're tired of helping you. We wish you well, but we're not going to do it again because you just keep burning the bridge the same way over and over again whenever you have that opportunity to turn around and to help us. And so there's two things happening here. The Latino community, as well as all people of color, right? All communities of color across the United States. They all have a similar belief that somehow they're better than African Americans, because that is what society has said, and society puts African Americans on the bottom of the totem pole, and therefore it must be true. It's mirrored back in the laws. It's mirrored back in how we are treated, and so there must be truth to that, right? Well, they know that it's not true. They're opening their eyes to that. So there's two things that are happening. They're opening their eyes to it, and they've got to work on helping other people wake up to it as well. That's a really good step one. Their step two, it would be really good to also understand or brainstorm how coming together could work in the future, right? What it is that they want to see in the future. Do they really mean it? Do they really believe that, now that they've opened their eyes, are they really seeing and believing that, okay, yes, we are all equal? Because we are. And so what in their behavior will be changed moving forward, and what will that togetherness look like, and how will it benefit everyone, right? In addition to that, for the Black community, now it's a big ask to suggest that we just say, okay, great, we're glad that you opened your eyes, fantastic, let's stick together. There are strength in numbers, and when we stick together, we are the majority. And the people in office, or those that don't want us to succeed and to live in peace, are the minority. And so there's lots that we can do here to change things. It's a big ask to get us there immediately. I think the first step for the African American community is really to recognize or to acknowledge that we have internalized a lot of that projection onto us from other communities of color, and the white Americans as well. And in that internalization, we've then projected it onto our own group, and so we've got a colorism issue as well as a gender issue. And we first need to envision ourselves coming together, because you can't help anyone else really if we haven't figured out how to help ourselves. And that needs to be our step one, in my opinion. But this is what I'm talking about with the matrix of belief, because this is happening and unfolding in real time. It's moving swiftly, and we've got to constantly make these decisions in very short amount of times. And so it seemed like I saw it the same day, right? Latino communities popping up with videos talking about this, and the same day, Black communities responding. And so we've got to be really intentional and careful about what we are deciding to, what hills we're deciding to die on, right? Because we will be taking action. If not together, we'll still be taking action at the same time against what is happening out there, right? That goes back to what I talked about in the last video of deciding how you need to show up in this moment. What is your next step of action? We will all be taking action, and we will all be working against or resisting that which, the orange blob and his cronies are trying to inflict upon us. And so wouldn't it be better to work together? Absolutely. I've been just talking about unity, unity, unity. But we've got to choose unity. But there are a couple of things that we've got to do in order to get to that unity. We've got to recognize how the conditioning and how the belief systems and that matrix of our beliefs has been kind of splintering out here, causing the divisiveness, right? And how we have continued to carry that through. We understand the origin of it. We know it came from the idea of whiteness. It's a part of that rhetoric. It's a part of that indoctrination. It's a part of that ideology. But in real time, we're resisting it. We have always been resisting it to an extent. And so now we've got to kind of, pull into play that next piece. And we've got to get to it quickly, because we need to show ourselves up the best that we possibly can so we can stand beside each other. Now, another component for the African American community, a lot of us are very aware that we internalize what is projected onto us, and then we turn around and project it onto our own group. For many of us, this is not news, right? But is it an awareness that the majority of us share? I don't know. And so that would be something that has to happen. And in addition to that, asking ourselves, is the possibility of being burned again too great to unify the way that is needed in order to resist what we need to resist in this moment? And also, in addition to that, asking ourselves, well, what is it that we really want moving forward? We know what that is. We want fairness. We want equality. We want an equal playing field. At the same time that it seems like the things that were helping us inch very slowly in that direction have been torn down, or is in the process of being potentially torn down, although it's tied up in ways because a lot of it is unconstitutional. So again, a very precarious moment, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't hold the vision. It doesn't mean that we don't seek out the smaller pockets of community that is already quite unified within the African American community, and that we don't add ourselves to that, right? That we don't just join those forces there to understand what that vision could look like, while also keeping in mind, yes, I know in the back of our minds, that idea of every time we try to build something up for ourselves, it's then torn down, and history has shown us that. But that doesn't mean that we don't allow ourselves to imagine it. It doesn't mean that we don't still want it. And so really that second step for us is just being honest. We want it. It doesn't have to be repeated in history the way that it has gone before. We will in fact ensure it. And if we allow ourselves to unify with other communities of color, who knows? Maybe they will have a hand in helping. So the next example, I'll go through this quickly. So I just want to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a medical intuitive. Do not listen to me for medical advice. I'm not giving you medical advice. Okay, this is merely just my opinion. So, really quick, the term neurodiversity was coined by an Australian sociologist in 1998, and then the term neurodivergent was coined by an American autism activist, and I'm not sure of the year, but it was shortly after. So I bring this up because I did a deep dive into this terminology and what the idea was behind it when it was first created to better understand it. And I looked at many articles and read many articles about 6 months ago or so to help myself better understand why the terminology was so prevalent throughout everything, right? I come into contact with that term all day long, people using it. But my understanding is that only 10 to 20% of the population actually fit within that group. That's what, the percentages were saying. And also, those terms were created to talk more about vulnerable populations, including those with autism, Asperger's, ADHD, OCD, schizophrenia, and Tourette's, and I may be missing another one. So those were the main groups those were the main conditions that people were experiencing, who then they called neurodivergent, right? And it was so that they could open up and facilitate conversations in spaces where those conversations were not happening and where they definitely needed to happen, right? So that the people could get the support that they needed, whether that was a diagnosis and medication or different accommodations or whatever it was. The part that I couldn't understand is why then, if those were the groups that they were that they created that terminology for, then why was it so prevalent today? And I continued to read and notice that the definition has been extremely broadened, right? Even to go as far as include people who suffer from chronic anxiety and stress. Now, you would think that those were framed as symptoms of those conditions, which would definitely be understandable, but that was not the case, which made me question it, right? If something is now so broad to where people, diagnosed or undiagnosed, can easily apply that label to themselves, then how useful is it to us as a society, right? Somewhere along the way, it's kind of lost its significance. But of course not. What I think has happened is that maybe people are just misusing the terminology, especially for those that are not 100% sure, or don't have any of the conditions that are a part of the original, the original definition. And they're more so in line with that broadened definition. And so again, I'm not a doctor, not even an intuitive, a medical intuitive, and I am not trying to give anyone medical advice or offend anyone. By all means, do what you think is right for you. I'm just sharing my opinion here and pontificating on a couple of things. So is it possible, and just roll with me for a second, is it possible that if people are potentially misusing that terminology and the definition, then could it be that, they don't fit neatly inside of the traditional boxes and structures of society, and there isn't enough terminology or words um, to understand why that is, or what it might be caused from, or what they can do about it. And so they reach for the term that is close enough, that helps them define it in a way, even if it's not the correct way. I think it's possible. And you can say, well, if you had someone in your family who was neurodivergent, then you would probably think about this differently. And actually, I do. Someone quite very, very, very close to me. Epilepsy is the other condition that I forgot to mention. But someone very close to me is neurodivergent, and I recognize that I don't fit into traditional boxes, and those standard structures of society. But I'm quite hesitant to use that terminology for myself because I don't want to accidentally misuse it, right? And so maybe it's just me who doesn't quite understand what it means. It is very possible. But a part of me wonders if it's really just the structures that need to be re-examined and recreated, because they were created back during the Industrial Revolution. These same structures that we are living within now, and they really just no longer support us, right? They're outdated. There was this bell system throughout these schools that trained people to then ready themselves to go work in factories, and so that's just not our reality anymore. There's a part of us that is constantly on the go, constantly thinking about the next thing that we need to do, the next place we need to be, the next, task that we need to tackle. And we never allow ourselves enough rest, especially here in the United States. It's different in other countries. But, all of that. It might be time to just look at all of it and figure out structures that can better support us, instead of reaching for terminology that's just not for us, right? So, okay, those were 2 examples. I think that is plenty. The thing about it, though, because we are moving so rapidly, talking about this matrix of our beliefs and talking about the moment that we are in here, maybe we don't have time to really pull it all apart and think it through in depth, right? And so we use that gut response when there's a news headline there that we don't agree with, and our nervous system and everything inside of us is saying, hell no. And then our next thought is, you know what, I'm unifying with whoever the heck wants to help figure this out and help remove it, right? Help stop this from happening, whatever it is. Then my first example doesn't even matter, right? But if there's some hesitancy, because especially if you're a person of color, for example, because of who's asking you to unify, then maybe there's a little more that you can look at before you draw your conclusion. We are again making these decisions in real time, and they are helping to create that story as we're landing on that grid. So we want to really make sure that we are as intentional as possible about what we're taking with us. So I was in meditation earlier today, and a group of my ancestors came through. Now, this doesn't normally happen for me. I work with my council, and it's 3 of them, yes, and 1 is my connection to my ancestors, but I hadn't had much experience with a group of them coming through that way, right? But there they were, a group of all women wearing off-whitish kinds of gowns, and all holding lanterns. And clearly this is just my symbol right now for spread the light, be the light, shine the light. And their overall message was that they were there with me to help do just that. Shine the light and show me that path and make sure that I completed this jump successfully, right? Well, you all have ancestors that you can call on along with your guides. And, if you pray to God or if you call the universe, right? Just include that. Include it in your intentions and your asks and your prayers that you send up at night or in the morning or during the day. Ancestors, be here with me. Help me on this path. Help me see what I need to see. Help me land where I need to land. Help us all collectively be safe. I mean, you can just throw it all in there, and ask also that the matrix of your beliefs do not hinder you, right, in this very important moment. So, okay, that's all that I have for you today. If you got anything out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe and set your notifications, and I will see you next time. One more thing before I go. So I started what I call the Spiritualist Collective, and it's an online spiritual community of like-minded spiritual practitioners and seekers at varying stages of their development. And we get together once a week to connect and to build and to share our gifts and to grow. And recently I opened it up to the larger BIPOC community. Don't love that acronym, but I know you know what I mean. But if any of this sounds good to you, then please check out the link in the description, and I hope to see you there.